Kia ora, and welcome to the Beer Jerk Beer of the Week Drink Along. I'm Luke, and this week we're drinking a beer from Sailor's Grave, who are, I feel like I say this a lot, but they are definitely one of my favourite breweries. And I guess I probably said it a lot because I choose beers from my favourite breweries to share with you wonderful people in the subscription box. So this is Soey's Draught, and it's an Australian draft beer. But back to Sailor's Grave. Sailor's Grave are Chris and Gab. Cheers to you. Chris and Gab are a married couple, and it's truly a family business. They took over an old dairy factory near where Gab grew up in Victoria, in the deep southeast of Australia. So right in the bottom right corner of Australia. Very, very rural area, the mouth of the Snowy River, next to the ocean, and it's all farmland around there, really, a really agricultural part of the world. And they're about equidistant, really, from Sydney to the north and Melbourne to the west. So I think they're about 3 or 4 hours from either city, which is a great place to be placed, I suppose. But a major thing is that they work with their neighbours. So farmers and people that just gather things from the land. So they use sea urchins in one of their beers famously. They use seaweed in their beers. So they've got a family history of hunting, foraging, and just really making full use of just the endemic flora and fauna of Australia, which is really, really wonderful. When I first met Gab and Chris at Gab's Festival in Melbourne many years ago. And if you've been to Gab's or a similar festival, you'll probably know that there's lots of sort of whiz-bang, showy exhibits and huge exhibition stands and big spinning wheels and monster trucks and Ferris wheels and all sorts of things. But Gab and Chris had quite a small stand. They're on the second floor, a little bit out of the way, and I had a bit of a chat with them, and their beer just really blew me away. Just using things like wattle seed and seawater and really great ingredients. I just really love their approach. And again, as I often talk about the ingredients that you put in a beer, it's everything. It's what the beer is. It's just the same as a great chef chooses great ingredients, and they also work with local farmers with their malted barley and their rice and different grains. So they've recently bought a small maltings, so they're going to be malting their own barley, and they've done some things with bloody butcher corn recently. So really a true farmhouse brewery. And this beer that we're drinking this week is a draft. You probably know draft is just the word for, it's become a style of beer, but draft just means it's a style of dispense. So when beer pours out of a tap, it's a draft beer rather than a packaged beer. But also, draft became a style of beer, and this is a type of lager, but it's got a bit more, I suppose, a touch more sweetness to it. And it's, as they describe themselves, I think it's on the can maybe. Yeah, it's a beer that tastes like beer. And there's a lot of history with beers like this, also in New Zealand. So this is sort of the origin of beers like Lion Red, I suppose, and Tui. Sorry, I'm mistaken there. Tui's an India Pale Ale, my mistake. But certainly Lion Red and Waikato are New Zealand drafts. And it's a beer designed for socialising. And these beers are generally, about 4 to 5%. And it's not something to get too wrapped up in, contrary to a lot of the beers that we do include in the Beer Jerk Beer of the Week box that contain chilies or Belgian quadruples or really unusual styles. It's a beer to not think too much about, just a beer to knock back or socialising. But if you are thinking about it, this is a really fantastic example. It's just a really clean ferment. It's got a dry finish. As I said, it's got a little bit of sweetness, the maltiness, but there's not too much to say about a beer like this, to be honest. It's beautifully made, and it's the sort of beer that you want a 24 pack of in your fridge, and it's a beer that you will keep coming back to. And culturally, it has been interesting seeing how ubiquitous, not ubiquitous, but very common at least, draft styles are with Australian brewers, which is a thing that we haven't really seen in New Zealand. It's almost unheard of for a New Zealand independent craft brewery to do a draft beer. And I guess they maybe don't see the point, and maybe drinkers wouldn't see the point in buying a beer like this that's more expensive than buying the generic cheap macro version from DB or from Lion, who are owned by Heineken and Asahi. Well, actually Mitsubishi, who own Kirin, who own Lion, not Asahi, but Asahi owns a load of other brands. So while it is nice to support wonderful local independent businesses, I guess a lot of people aren't that bothered. But in Australia we are, you can see behind me, we've just got a load of Deeds. So there's the Deeds Draught, I don't know if you can see that in the shot, which is another great lager. So yeah, a whole bunch of brewers in Australia do a draft beer. And that's about all there is to say about it. So Sailor's Grave, again, great brewery. One of the reasons why I love them is their really cool can artwork, a lot of which is created by Gab, the co-owner. She's a very, very talented artist, and she creates wonderful work, sort of woodcut style illustrations. And they also work with two other artists, and there's a real style. You can tell which the three artists has created each of their labels, because each of them is so different. So just a really nice visual aesthetic to all of their cans, and they're also a big part of their community. So the wonderful shirt that I'm wearing is from the Deep in the Weeds Festival, which is just a really cool community festival of music and beer and good food that happens each year in Oberst, which is the town where they're located in Gippsland in the deep southeast. And it's still a place I haven't yet visited. Every time I get to Australia, it's always a whistle-stop trip, and it's to Sydney or it's to Melbourne, and it's whizzing around, visiting all the different brewers and visiting people. So I definitely need to carve out a little bit more time and take a road trip down to Gippsland, because it sounds like a pretty fucking magical place. But anyway, great work, Gab and Chris. This is a banging draft, really great example of it. I think it's a beer that you can't not like, really. It's a beer that tastes like beer, but better. So I think you're all going to enjoy it. And in other news, as I say, me and Joe just unloaded this import from Deeds, hot off the boat into New Zealand. And we've got a Deeds mix pack that has just gone live on the website. So it's limited, as these things always are. We try not to overorder because we like these things to shift quickly. So a whole bunch of really interesting beers that I think you're going to really enjoy. So stuff like this beautiful West Coast IPA brewed with the Canadian brewery, extra special bitter, always a huge fan of those sort of beers. A ginger lime goza, hazy pale. We've got a imperial pastry stout post workout. Can't wait to try that one. I haven't tried it yet. Lamington, we've imported this before, so I might have some fans of that already. And a dark wheat Schadenfreude. So check out our website. They probably won't be around for long, but that's a really fantastic 12-pack that we've literally just listed. It's just arrived. Anyway, I'm going to go back to enjoying this lovely draft beer. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining us once again for the Beer Jet Beer of the Week. See you next time. Cheers.